Hello everyone and welcome back to another video brought to you by The Car Place. I'm Jeremy Moser, and in this video today I'm going to be giving you a deep dive on what to look out for in the process of buying a second-hand car, so that not only you don't waste your hard-earned money on a beaten up vehicle, but rather get something that lives up to your expectations and makes you a happy driver. Now, before we get started, we must mention to you that this guide is intended for those of you buying your car from a private seller. If you want even more peace of mind, we highly recommend purchasing your vehicle through a reputable pre-owned dealership, such as the ones listed on our website. Now, for some extra added convenience, we've broken this guide up into 6 different phases, so let's quickly have a look at them. Phase 1 is going to be where to start. Phase 2 is going to be about being prepared. Phase 3 is going to be looking at the car. Phase 4 is going to be the test drive. Phase 5 is going to be the service history. And lastly, Phase 6, the pre-purchase inspection. This list should cover all the most important things to check before buying a pre-owned car. Now guys, if you're not a subscriber already, smash that subscribe button. And yeah, let's get into it. Now, before you get into too much detail about any particular car, make sure you have found the right car by asking yourself questions like, does this car suit my lifestyle? Does this car, or can it do what I need it to do? And most importantly, does it fit your budget? Remember, if you have, let's say, 250,000 Rand to spend on a car, you technically only have 230,000 Rand to spend. Because at the end of the day, there's going to be those extra expenses like license and registration, or perhaps new tires for the car. Also, it's a good idea to leave even more cash left over at the end of buying your car for a service, as this is going to give you much needed peace of mind. Also, at the end of this video, as you'll see, you're going to want to take your car for a pre-inspection, and this is also going to cost a couple of bucks. So don't only make sure you're buying the right car for you, but also the right car for your budget. Alright, so this is an easy one. Let's say you've just found the perfect car for yourself and your budget. The next step is to obviously go and look at it, and you're going to want to be prepared. Alright, so our first suggestion when going to view the car is to not wear any fancy clothes. That's right, don't dress rich when you go and view the car. If you dress rich or fancy, there's a high chance that the owner or seller is not going to give you any sort of discount when negotiating the price of the vehicle. So don't dress fancy or rich. Secondly, you're going to want to bring a torch when you go view the car, because you're going to want to look at those dark and hard to reach places around the car, which we'll get into late in this video. And lastly, try to arrange with the seller that you meet in a safe, well-lit place during the day if possible. If you view the car in rainy or dark conditions, it's going to hide all sorts of things like scratches and dents. So make sure you arrange with the seller that you meet at a safe place that's well lit. Alright, so the first thing you're going to want to do when you get to the car is check the paint, the panel gaps, any overspray, scratches, dents, and the wheels and the tires. So, let's show you how to do this. Now for paint, make sure you go over the entire car and check the color and the texture and see if there's any inconsistencies across any of the panels. You should actually go and touch the car and feel with your hand if you can feel any inconsistencies across any of the panels across the car. Now, if it's not a beautiful day like we have here today, nice and sunny, and it's dark, make sure you bring out your torch and shine it on all the panels across the whole car. You don't want to see any inconsistencies in color or texture across any of the panels across the whole car. So make sure you look closely, and if you do find anything strange, ask the owner why. Was the car in an accident? Was it resprayed? Why wasn't it repaired correctly? Alright, now for panel gaps, go over all the panel gaps across the entire car and check that the gap is the same and consistent throughout the whole car. If you do see any gaps that are noticeably different, ask the owner why. Was the car maybe in an accident? Why wasn't it repaired correctly? Also be sure to open and close everything that can open and close. That means the doors, the bonnet, the boot, the sunroof, anything that can open and close it, and check for anything weird in that process. Alright, then overspray, aka spray paint overspray. Grab your torch and have a look under the vehicle's wheel arches and see if you can see any spray paint overspray. Another good place to check would be the air vents in the front of the car, and also pop the bonnet and have a look at the engine bay. These are common places to see overspray, and if you do find any overspray, you know that the car has been resprayed and was likely in an accident. Also be sure to have a look at the bolts on the inner guards. If they are new or different or the paint is scratched off, why? Alright, then for dents and scratches. Now guys, most used cars are going to have a few dents or scratches, and it's completely up to you to determine what is acceptable and what is not. But remember guys, at the end of the day, a car with a few minor scratches or dents can earn you some negotiating power when it comes time to negotiate your price. However, any scratches that are deep enough on the metal parts of the car will require some repair work, as it will eventually turn into rust, and this repair work can be quite expensive. Alright, then next up we have wheels. Check for any gauges or serious damage to the wheel. If you do see any, that is not a good sign. This could cause issues with your suspension components and your wheel alignments, which will eventually lead to tire wear problems. Alright, then we got tires. Now, are the tires from brands you are familiar with? We all know that cheap is never cheerful, so do a round around the car and check each tire. If the owner has been cutting costs on the tire, it makes you wonder, where else has this owner been cutting costs? Alright guys, next you're going to want to check the actual tread pattern on the tire, on each tire. If it is slightly deformed, it could mean that there is damage to the suspension, and that could cost you some good money. Best case scenario though, it just has a wheel alignment issue. Also, if the tires are worn on the outside quite a lot, that likely means that the owner likes to take his corners quite roughly, and that indicates he could be a little bit of a wild driver. Also, if the tires are extremely worn and there's barely any tread left, that means that you're going to have to put on some new tires after you buy it. And that could give you some negotiating power when it comes to negotiating your price. Alright, so once you've checked all that out, it's time to take a look at the engine. Alright, so here we are in the engine bay, and there are three main things that we want to check, and that is oil, coolant, and condition. So in terms of oil, pull out the dipstick and make sure there is oil on it and that it is close to the full mark. Also pay attention to the color. If it is a very light brown in color, that is not good. Alright, then for coolant, what you want to look out for here is a nice rich color in the coolant. So it's usually red or green. So open up the coolant overflow bottle and check that the color is a nice rich red or green. Also make sure that it is full. Alright, now for condition. Basically, you want to look out for anything that's sort of out of place. Check if there are any modifications that have been done, and check that they have also been done properly. When you're done, start her up and have a good listen to how she sounds. Make sure there's no weird rattles or squeaks coming from the engine bay. Alright, if you're good with the car so far, it's time to get inside. Alright guys, so here we are on the interior of the vehicle. Now the first thing you're going to want to probably check is the odometer reading. Does the odometer reading match the condition of the interior of the car? If the odometer on the car says anything under 70,000 kilometers, but the steering wheel is extremely worn, the plastics on the dashboard all scratched, the seats are falling apart, and the pedals look horrible, there's a high chance that the odometer has been tampered with, and that's a very bad sign. If the odometer hasn't been tampered with, well then that just means that the owner has mistreated their car or perhaps abused it. Now on the flip side of that, if the odometer reading is really high and the overall condition is really good, well that's a good sign that the owner has taken care of the car very well and has likely taken care of a lot of other things in the car too. Also, make sure you get in the back seat and have a look around at everything. Try and take note of the condition of everything around you. The same thing goes for the boot. Well, you don't have to sit in it, but have a good look around and check the condition of everything. Also, make sure it has a spare wheel and make sure that the spare wheel has air in it. Also be sure to check the wheel jack and the wheel spanner and any other tools that the vehicle is supposed to come with. And if they're not there, ask the owner about it. Alright guys, now before we go on to phase 4, we suggest taking a short moment to stop and think about everything that you just examined with the car. Try not to let your excitement overrule any red flags that you may have noticed. Go and have a quick cup of coffee and have a moment to yourself to think about if this car is still worth your while. Alright guys, now for the test drive. Now before you start the car and drive anywhere, first make sure you're able to get comfortable. So adjust everything like the steering wheel, the seat, the mirrors, and just make sure you're able to get comfortable. If you can't get comfortable at this point, should you really be buying the car? Comfort is a serious thing and it's often overlooked. Alright guys, now start the car and check that all the buttons on the dash and the steering wheel all work as intended. If there is a button and you don't know what it's about, press it and see what it's about and make sure that it works. If you don't know what it's about, ask the owner, but just make sure that it works. Also, very importantly, make sure you try the air conditioning and the heater. Try each fan level speed and make sure that it works as intended. This is important guys. If you have a broken air conditioning unit, that's a very expensive repair. Alright, now it's time to go for a drive. Alright guys, now when you get in the car and start driving, make sure you turn off the radio, turn off the fans, turn off any system sounds that the car makes, and try and have a good listen to how the car sounds for what it really is. Especially while going over bumps or taking any corners. Can you hear any rattles, any clunks, any grinding? If you can hear any of those things, that is not a good sign. Alright guys, now the next thing you're going to want to check is the gears. If it's a manual transmission vehicle, gear changing should be smooth and accurate, and the vehicle should never fall out of gear while you're driving. On the other hand, if it's an automatic transmission, the vehicle shouldn't have any issues hunting for gears. It should just be smooth. So next up, you're going to want to check the steering. If possible, go to a big open parking lot or any big open space and do some circles and some sharp turns. And in that process, make sure you lock the steering wheel to the left and lock it to the right as well. And have a good listen to how the car sounds. If it makes any strange sounds in that process, that could indicate some potential problems. And in that case, you should probably ask the owner about it. Alright guys, now the next thing you're going to want to do is find some bumps like speed bumps and go over them a couple of times and have a good listen to if you can hear any bad sounds coming from the suspension. Alright then, also whilst driving, make sure you do some accelerating and check that the acceleration is smooth and that there's no dead spots. Also, you're going to want to come to a stop and rev the car all the way up to the red line and check to see if there's any smoke coming out the exhaust. If there is any smoke, that's a bad sign. Alright guys, next you're going to want to do some braking. In that process, try and make sure that the car doesn't pull too much to the left or to the right. Also, make sure that there's no shudder coming from the steering wheel. Alright guys, and then lastly, check the buttons one last time and make sure that everything works. If the car has cruise control or adaptive cruise control, press these buttons and make sure they work as intended. Also, if there's any buttons that are unknown to you, ask the owner about it, press it, and make sure that it actually works. Alright guys, now as you're doing all these things, you should be trying to get a good feel for the car. You should ask yourself, is this car comfortable? Am I enjoying the ride? Is the car an enjoyable car? Alright, now if the car is still checking all your boxes, it's time to move on to the second last phase. It's time to take a look at the service history. Alright guys, when you get back from the test drive, make sure you ask the owner about the service book. Check the service book and make sure that all the services for the vehicle is up to date. Also, ask the owner about any modifications or work done to the car and ask for proof of receipt. Having a solid vehicle service history is a really crucial part about buying a good car. If there are any mysteries about the vehicle service history, that should be a serious red flag. Alright guys, if everything is still good with the car, it's time to move on to the last and final phase. Phase 6, it's time to take the car for a pre-purchase inspection. Alright guys, now for most of you, a car is most likely going to be the second biggest purchase of your life, besides a house of course. And therefore, it's crucial that you mitigate as much risk as possible, right? Right. That's why we suggest you take the car for a pre-inspection before you go ahead and purchase the vehicle. Reputable dealerships would have had this inspection done already when they purchased the vehicle, and you can ask them for copies of these inspection documents. Now, some dealers may charge you for this, and some dealers may even include it for free. Again, making your buying experience a whole lot more pleasurable. A pre-inspection will find any potential issues before they become expensive to fix. You see, when cars are sold, owners will often only show you the good side of the vehicle, but fail to mention any problems or faults. The used car owner may have spiffed up the car just before you came to view it. So don't be dazzled by a shiny paint job or a spotless interior. Ask the owner for a pre-inspection, as this is more of an investment than it is a cost. Alright guys, now if everything is checked out with the vehicle and you're still happy with everything, it's time to start negotiating. Once you start negotiating, don't be that person who lowballs the seller with a very low figure. Have some respect for the owner or the seller. At the same time, don't allow yourself to get ripped off. Alright guys, so that's it. Those are some of the most important things that we'd be sure to check when buying a second-hand car from a private seller. If you're going to be buying your car from a reputable dealership, the process is going to be a lot quicker and smoother. Now, before we finish off, if you want to download this highly useful inspection guide, make sure you click on the link in the description of this video, where we break it down for you in a nice written format. Alright guys, if you found any value in today's video, make sure you smash the like button for us. Also, if you're not a subscriber already, make sure you smash the subscribe button so you never miss an upload from this channel again. Thanks so much for watching guys. I'm Jeremy Moser, and I'll see you in the next one. So that you don't only not waste your money, that lives up to your expectations and makes you a happy driver. So that not only you waste, you don't. So that not only you don't. Now, before we get started, we must mention to you that this should for those buying their car through a pre-owned, just the ones listed on our website. One, two. And lastly, arrange with the seller to view inconsistencies across the whole car. Grab your torch and look under the vehicle. Hello. These places are likely to be noticeable. Dents and scratches could give you a few. Could earn you some negotiating power when it. But just remember, guys. However, any scratches that are. And if the owner is. And that should make you. And check the tires for the brand and the. Do a round around. That means that you're gonna have to put on some new. Says anything under 70,000 Rand. I mean, and the pedals look horrible. Also be sure to check the. Alright guys, now check the air conditioning unit. You want to hear the car for what it. Okay, here it goes. And action.